welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today, I always say I'm so excited, but I'm always excited because I get to meet the coolest people in this podcast. But I'm so excited to share another guest episode with you today. I knew Faith. I had known of Faith. I think she and I have interacted a few times, and a friend of mine sent her my way. I was like, you guys, I don't know if you have, she even said, I don't care if you put her on your podcast or not, but you have to meet with Faith. She's amazing, you guys. If nothing else, we'll have an amazing conversation. And she and I met, we had an amazing conversation. I was like, we're going to put you on my podcast, where we had yet another super impactful conversation. I'm really excited about this one because this, again, is something that has affected me personally in the past, and it's probably affecting a lot of you and has affected millions of people or whatever. We'll get into it. But before I do that, I'm super excited to have her on. Faith is a coach. She helps businesses and organizations and executive leaders, people managers, all that, try to, reframe their mindset and rework their business to cultivate a better work environment for culture, people, humans. It's putting human beings first. And yeah, you'll hear more about it in this episode. Can't wait for you to hear it all. But before we do that, if you love this podcast and you would like to support me further, please consider going over to patreon.com/NikkiTheDeathDoula. For as little as $1 a month, you can get access to this podcast a week early. You get grief affirmations. You will get other bonus content throughout the month. And all of the money I receive from my podcast, I put into a budget so that I can provide pro bono work within the community. I do have a client I work with pro bono, and I do other speaking and education engagements throughout the month. I do all of these. I don't get me wrong, I'd like to get paid sometimes for them if I can, but if I am asked to do something for a nonprofit or whatever, I will do that because of my patrons. So thank you so much to my patrons who are already supporting this podcast. So please consider doing that. Another great way to support me, if you really like this podcast, is get some merch. You see this shirt right behind me there? It says Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula. It's got my logo on it. It's super fun. On the back, it's got my 3 sentences that I say at the end of every episode. Your grief is yours. Your feelings are valid. Grief doesn't always have to suck. That is on the back of that shirt. It comes in more than just that green color. I think it comes in like 6, 8, 10. I don't even remember how many colors it comes in. You pick your color. But if you can find that link in the show notes, you can also find it on my website, NikkiTheDeathDoula.com/podcast. There's a link there. There's stickers, notebooks, a mug. Just go check all that. That'd be great. But without further ado, I would like to introduce to you my dear friend, Miss Faith Clarke. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back and tuning in again this week. I'm so excited to have one of my dear friends, and I don't know if we're not really coworkers, but we're part of some same groups.
Colleague-ish, kind
Colleagues in a way, a fellow coach and an amazing human being, Miss Faith Clarke. Faith, you know what? I'm just going to let you take a second. Please tell my listeners a little bit about you, where you are in the world, and what it is you do.
Nikki, thank you so much for this conversation. I think we're going to have fun. I'm Faith Clarke. I live in the Northeast New York, like above the city, though I am from Jamaica. And my work in the world is really to partner with people wherever they are and help them take the next step. But like the exact implementation of that for me right now is, how do humans in organizations, in workplaces, in communities organize themselves to have impactful existences and still be really human? What I've noticed is that people, in our attempts to do good work, we sacrifice our humanity. And so I'm just like, how do we people better? How do we people in ways that honor ourselves? So that's kind of that's the philosophical side of my work. It's teamwork, it's culture building, it's conflict resolution, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. And now my listeners might know a little bit of why I wanted to have you on the show so bad, because most people know I come from a corporate background. I worked in corporate America up until about, when did I leave? 3 years ago now? 3 years ago, I left corporate America. I have not looked back since. It's been amazing. 2 years ago, either way. I spent most of my adult life in that environment, and that's all I knew. That's
Yeah.
all I thought there was. And looking back on it, and even while I was in it, I was finding moments of like you were talking about, I was not a human being
Yeah.
in any of these corporate structures. I was a cog in their machine, which I respect and understand. I knew my place at least, right? I knew to them I was not a human being, but I was just part of their infrastructure for profit.
Which is so sad.
I
Which is
know.
just so sad when we think about that. That's what we've created, and this is what we've perpetuated. How to strip us down to just being a cog in a machine.
Yeah. And I'm curious, and this, we'll get back to grief in a minute, but I'm curious your thoughts on this since you're kind of an expert in this field. Like, I can understand and respect looking at an organization or company like they're existing to make money. That's what we do. You know, I have to make money to pay for my house, my food. I don't always love that, but that's just how our society is set up. So these companies are made to make money, right? So I can understand to a point like, you know, we can't sit here and baby every employee all the time because we're going to lose productivity, we're not going to get things done, and our bottom line will drop, we'll stop making money. But at the same time, if you don't value that human being and treat them like a human being, they're going to leave and you're going to lose that employee. And sure, somebody else will just jump right in. But where is the balance? Like, where do we find the balance with this? With treating people like humans, understanding that we're all amazing and dynamic individuals, while also, you know, maintaining your company, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
so yeah, I'm going to be a little facetious and just
Please.
say that's the wrong question. And I
Mm.
think the
Ooh,
reality is
okay.
that so many of our leaders and our organizations, we've been taught that question. It's a false binary. And so we've been taught this idea that if we care for people, it's babying, it's
Okay.
coddling, it's not the work. A friend of mine who was a manager said, "Where's the line between helping the people who report to me do good work and being their coach and being their therapist?" And I'm like, why is there a line?
Yeah.
What made us think that caring for humans has a line, these compartments, these boxes, that the compartments and the boxes are really a part of an old structure, the industrial model that says instead of back wherever we lived in 150 people, 150 person people groups where people had roles, but it was just pretty much more fluid. What we've done is said, this is what nursing means, this is what doctoring means, this is what lawyering means, and we've created these false structures. So
Right.
that's an example of a false binary. And I think to create environments where people thrive, we have to ask a different question.
Okay.
If people are going to be a part of what you're doing to make money,
Mhm.
then how do you care for those people? So if I was doing some kind of thing with horses or cattle or something, and I'd be asking the question, if I want high quality meat for the people that I'm serving and for so and so, how do I care for the cattle? We're not asking that question for people. And I think that it fundamentally it's almost as if we need to reshape this as an ethical dilemma. And so
Yeah.
just like we have ethics about conflict of interest and all kinds of things, it has to be how do we care for people in a
Yeah.
way? How do we not perpetuate violence against humans, which is so much a part of our history? How do
Mhm.
we not do that in our attempts to create income in the world?
I
And
love.
so I just kind of disengage from the where's the balance
Right.
conversation.
I love, well, thank you. And thank you for that because I only know this and this, and you know so much more. So that I'm so glad I asked you that because now I know better than to understand. But I can understand what you're getting at to a point because we're trying to fix what we've had when maybe we just start over again, you know, or not necessarily start over, but don't just keep trying to band-aid what we've created. Maybe what
Right.
we created, we can all just admit it doesn't work and
Yeah.
create something new.
There's a like for me, part of the training and the tooling of people in organizations, especially leaders, is just to recognize whenever we frame things as that binary, it's this or that.
Yeah.
Then it forces us to say no to something. And one of my primary values is the yes, yes. The
Hmm.
yes, yes is just the yeah, we have two things that seem like they're opposing, and so we get to ask a different question. How do I hold this and this together? And
Yeah.
we are creative and smart, and we've put rovers on Mars, and we've done all kinds of amazing things. And the way we did that scientifically is that we built a bridge between two apparently disconnected ideas. And we
Right.
do that every day in science. And I'm just like, for our humaning, that's
Yeah.
what we need to do. These two things must connect. How do we make them connect?
Thank you. I love that. Thank you. And thank you for explaining that so perfectly and succinctly. So I love that. I love that so much. And my brain is turning a million different directions now. So getting back into sort of the grief end of things, I had mentioned I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about grief in the workplace. And way back in the beginning of my podcast, I had on a good friend of mine, Jennifer, who started a group online called Your Grief Matters. And she has a huge passion for grief in the workplace. She's led the workshops. I believe she's doing that more frequently now, and how to work with your employees in that space. Because I complain about this all the time on this podcast. Here in most corporate state or corporate cultures, you get 3 days bereavement. And that's only if it's a loss of parentheses, these relatives.
Right, right.
If your best friend or your second cousin that maybe was like your whole world dies, well, you get nothing. But if your mom
Right.
dies, who maybe you didn't even like your mom, you can have 3 days.
Yeah.
But either way, I
Right.
think we all know you don't wrap up grief in 3 freaking days.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So how can I know we can't like fix it. If you and I could fix all the world's problems right
Oh
now,
boy. Oh boy.
we would have a field day. But you and I can't fix all the world's problem. But how can we at least start to fix this problem? And help me if I'm phrasing it incorrectly. It's not a problem to be fixed, but how do we change how we're approaching working with people who have a job to do or, have a career, but also have this loss that they need to navigate now?
Yeah. And I have like 100 places that I could go with that. And I think the first place I would love to start is just that's part of this bigger question about the fullness of our humanity showing up at work. And
Hmm.
I think organizations, leaders, and even us in our businesses, I have staff at home, and it's a constant tension to how do I fully embrace what it means for that person to be human and the implications of it on me, because our desire to control the outcome and the process means I want them to act a certain way. I want that to be uniform all the time. And that's machine. And that's not
Yeah.
nature. And that's not right. So when I think about it, it's like how do we leave space for all of our humanity, which means all the emotions?
Hmm.
And and I think that we then have to be willing to deal with our fear and our discomfort around expressing emotions. Now, I'm not saying that if you are at work, like I used to be in a classroom. So, is there space for me as a teacher to burst into tears in front
Hmm.
of my students? Yes and no. And
Sure.
I think that in every space, there is this what's going to get in the way of the work, and then how do we create space in other parts of whether it's the building or more time off or whatever, so that people can navigate in the ways they need. But also, just while we are at work, how do we create space for the expression of all the emotions without moralizing them, without
Right.
judging them, and especially in people, femme presenting or female bodies, we are judged for expressing emotions in ways that men are not. And
Right.
so the challenge around that is the first thing, and every leader needs to kind of confront their own judgment for
Yeah.
themselves and for others. And I think specifically when it comes to grief, um, well, you said 3 days, and immediately I was just like, who gets to say what the system that we have is like a prescription system. First, I have to get permission to feel what I feel. I have to get permission to be sick. I have to get permission. And this whole asking for what I need, I do a lot of research on belonging. At the moment I have to advocate for and ask for what I need, it's a signal that I don't belong. The higher up you are in the people hierarchy, the less you have to ask for what you need, the more space you have to experience what
Yeah.
you experience. And so, um, this 3 days that somebody else determines is what I need. I
Mm.
have a lot of like feeling for that. But I do think I was with a client last year and they approached us with this question. They're like, on the same bereavement matter, whose family? And
Yeah.
I said, anybody
Yeah.
that person says
Yeah.
is family. And I think
Yeah.
we have to start there.
Yeah.
That like in terms of conversations about grief or parenting or anything, it
Right.
is the person honoring the human means who do you say is family? Good. Do
Yeah.
you want a name put in here? We'll put these names down. Or in the moment that you determine that family has been lost or whatever, you get to,
Yeah.
this is flexible. And I think even, I don't know that we need to have grief, bereavement leave. I think we need to have enough time allotted to people that they can take for their own care,
Yeah.
that they don't have to say, hey, I'm grieving. Like that even feels intrusive. Do I need to tell you that I'm grieving? Like if
Mhm.
I've lost a baby, that might be something I don't want to talk about. That I've
Right.
And so, why not build systems where instead people don't have to get our permission to feel the
Mhm.
things they feel? People don't have to get our permission to care for themselves the way they need to care for themselves.
Yeah.
Let's figure out ways to do that. And I think that also comes to a matter of work arrangements. And I talk about this a lot when everybody was going back in office. I was just like,
Oh,
what the, I'm not saying people shouldn't be in office. I think in-person contact is very important.
yes.
And
Yes.
also mandating stuff, that's straight back to industrial. Like
Right.
that has to be dialogue and co-creation. So how do we just create work arrangements that support the actual people? That
Yeah.
might mean that in a particular period of time, the person has the flexibility to be in dialogue with their team and says, for this week, I need to be out because nothing. I just need to be out.
Right.
And we create this meeting, this thing, and we are so innovative. We can create new work arrangements based on what we need. And I think it's more about the organization having the space for that.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I don't know that I've answered your question, but I do think that one, we have to be able to feel and
Mm-hmm.
be able to express those feelings at work. We have to be willing to not be uncomfortable when other people
Mm-hmm.
have a feeling and
Yeah.
to be able to be alongside that and share that feeling with people while also working. These things are not hard because mothers inside houses do it every day. Like a child is crying and you lean alongside and you're still doing all the things you do. Humans have this ability.
Yeah.
We can take it into the workplace as well. It's
Yeah.
just that the workplace has kind of been anesthetized. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And you did kind of answer my question, but either way, this was fantastic. All of that was great. And I there were a couple things I wrote down while you were talking that came to mind is the needing to ask permission for what I need. Like
yeah,
I love that, and that's always been like something that's bothered me. Like, why should I shouldn't have to ask permission for something that I need as a human being, right? But that's just that has been instilled in me since infancy,
right.
and
No,
I grew up, different time frame than where we are right now is in the 70s, 80s, 90s and everything. But even in my time in corporate America, that's just the mentality of like, if I need time off for whatever reason, I have to ask permission for that, which I get it, if coverage is needed, whatever. But especially when it comes to things like grieving, when my brother died, I mean, I needed to take a whole week off. There's a lot of logistical stuff to take care of, and even after that, there were other things that came up that I needed time off for, and to have to ask permission for that was, but asking permission is so drilled into my brain that I still have yet to fully break myself of that.
yeah,
I
and
find
it's
myself,
uncomfortable.
it
It's
is.
really uncomfortable. I remember my aunt was when she turned 50, and so I'm a proud post 50 person now. But when she turned 50, she said to me, you get that freedom. You feel it in your body. So somebody asked her, "Hey, can we use your house for whatever?" And she said no. And she said I could see the person waiting. Because what they're waiting for is the reason. So the asking permission on one side or you justifying what you need, it's the
Yeah,
same thing. And she was like, no, it is a full sentence. She just waited and and finally they got it that, oh no, that's it.
yeah,
And I think that's such an ability that we all need to be leaning into, that I can declare what I need and what I'm going to do. And
yeah.
we need to create more flexible systems. It's the rigidity in the
Mhm.
system That is, yeah. So when I need what I need, and that means there's a space in the system, I'm happy to be part of co-creating a solution for that. If you give me that power, often in corporate spaces, I don't have the power. It is left to, it's a burden on management. And so,
Yeah.
yes, I understand that that's an organizational design
Yeah.
issue. And we do need to design for much more flexibility in the systems.
Absolutely. And the need to quantify your no, like
Mhm.
thank or qualify your no. Thank you again for mentioning that because that's something as women, we deal with a lot because we have to be polite and like we have all these like parameters around everything we say and do, which is stupid.
Right.
We're
Mhm.
learning now, but just again, like if I lose my second cousin, but my second cousin and I grew up together and we were like siblings, and I have to take bereavement leave because that one really hurt and I'm having a hard time with that, to tell my boss, like, I need time off because I've experienced a loss. And they want to know if it fits in that parameter. So I have to explain who it is. And then I have to explain why I'm so hurt. And I'm like, I shouldn't have to do that. That should not be
No.
on me to explain
That's
my reason.
labor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a thing to also recognize that the system is built on people who are less privileged and less powerful have the labor of justification. And
Yeah.
so I have to now make sure I qualify for whatever it is resourcing that's
Yeah.
available at my level. And
Yeah.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I have memories of CEOs from companies I worked in. Obviously, I'm not going to name names, who would just like leave in the middle of the day and be gone
That's
the
right.
rest of the week, and
That's right.
nobody knew where they were. They were like, I don't know. I guess he'll come back. He's not answering his phone.
Yeah,
But that was perfectly okay. We all just rolled with it. But if I did
exactly.
that, oh my God, I'd get fired immediately.
Right, right,
You know?
exactly.
So
I think when we part of the tuning for all of us in creating this different kind of workspace and community space is recognizing the signals of old system and old thought. So I pointed out the binary and this value hierarchy of human beings is the other one that you kind of want to just be able to spot so that it gives you courage to be able to say, oh no, I'm not participating in the value hierarchy, which means I don't have to, whatever it is. And the value hierarchy of humans basically just means the higher up in the hierarchy you are, the more correct your knowledge is, the more resourcing you have, the more power you have to move around. And so the lower down you are, less resourcing, less power, and you don't know. Somebody has to know for you and tell you what you know.
yep,
And so as you experience that, then you can kind of recognize it for what it is or its system. And then I am not participating in that and figure out ways to have that conversation to say, no, I get to say what I need or
yeah,
whatever it is. I think there's something I just wanted to mention here about grief. A friend of mine was so gracious. She's a burnout coach and a relationship coach from an anti-patriarchal lens. And she just said, grief is an invitation. When you're experiencing grief, it's an invitation to care for yourself.
yeah,
So when we are thinking about people who are grieving around us,
mhm,
if we can hold, or first of all, as a person, when I am grieving, and I think every yes, every change in life also comes with grief, even positive change, because change means I'm saying yes to something. It also means that I'm leaving something else. And I need to practice my grieving muscles around that. It comes back in the
yeah,
future if I don't. And so I need to allow myself to receive care when I'm grieving. And so when we think about workspaces and we think about people who are grieving, how do we invite that person into care? And how do we have practices in the workplace of offering care? And what does care look like? Care is always defined by the person who needs care.
mhm,
And so what that building those muscles to really hear what the person needs and to be able to offer it because as you said, it's not 3 days, it's not 1 week.
right,
It's 6 months to a year. And so what's the arc of care that we're offering in our work communities as people go through grief has a long tail. It just comes back and slaps you and you're like, wait, I thought I was through. No, it's
yeah,
back. And so what's the environment of care
yeah,
that recognizes that and is not judging you for being in tears at a piece of music that
right,
comes through the intercom and
right,
that brings back that memory.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm not a sociologist, I'm not an anthropologist, I'm not any of those things, but I can recognize that we as humans just we love to quantify and qualify things and like put stuff into perfect little boxes. And we're not, humans can't do that. We can't be black and white and like this or that. We're like a beautiful rainbow, because I love rainbows, of individuals, and we're all going to experience things differently. So that's why, thank you. I love this. We can't like set up a structure that this is how we do things, because that's not going to work for these people over here. It might work for this guy, but not this person, you know?
Mhm.
So yeah.
I
Um,
think it's about building the meta skill in the community. It's I like modeling things off the body and nature. And so my body has this ability to sense. There's multiple micro sensors all over. And so I sense small changes and then respond. And I think inside of our communities, we all, instead of kind of being tunnel visioned in our thing that we're doing, it's a broader global sensing that we have this ability to do, to pay attention.
yeah,
And based on the thing that we've noted, how do we respond in the micro? And that might just be going over to a person or whatever it is, but to feel that freedom to sense and respond
yeah,
versus what's the rule here? What's the HR
right.
policy? What am I supposed to be doing? And
Yeah.
that thing that's been trained into us, we know it doesn't work, and it robs us of the human ability to just sense and respond.
Yeah. And that reminds me of something you said way back a while ago, about our kind of fear of expressing our emotions because, and this even outside of just the corporate world, but just in life in general, we're taught from a young age, like not to like express our emotions in a big way, at least in our culture. In other cultures, it's a-okay. But for most of us in Western cultures, like you don't want to like be that person just bawling your eyes out in public. You can't get overly angry. You can't scream. You can't rage for a second. I mean, you can't do any of those things because those are quote unquote bad, right? So then
Mm.
it's like if I'm feeling really angry, I'm too scared to like I have to go hide myself in a room and cry because I can't yell at somebody or I can't yell at just the broader universe like, oh, I'm so mad at this one thing right now. I can't cry. I can't sob because that makes people around you uncomfortable and that's not okay. So I love the thought of just having a place where I can go out in public and if I'm really angry at something, I can be angry as long as I'm not being angry at a person. I'm not
Right.
yelling at a person. But if I'm just like angry in a moment, I can be angry in a moment. And if
Yeah,
I'm really sad, I can just sit down and sob and that's okay.
yeah. And I think just even building that bridge for ourselves into being, for those things to be okay, it does start in the small places. It like there are some small low risk opportunities for us to express emotion
Mhm.
and to let other people. So I'm in a WhatsApp chat with a friend, and as I left a voice note, and then she said, "Are you angry?" And I'm like, "No." I just was expressing the emotion of the sentiment. And I
Yeah.
think we have to be aware that we're building in each other
Mm.
this ability. And so, how authentic can we be in our relationships just to give ourselves this practice? And
Yeah.
I think also just to recognize when you say Western culture in this space that we're in that's so hybrid, that what we're doing is centering whiteness. And what we want to do is think about, well, how have humans in the global majority lived?
Yeah.
And the expression of emotion is the way we signal to others how they need to respond.
Yeah.
Like if it is that I am angry and I've expressed that, I am signaling injustice as far as I am seeing it. And
Right.
that provides an opportunity for people to say, oh, there's some injustice, what's going on? And no, or if I signal grief, then they're, oh, care, soup, right? And
Yeah.
our own ability to kind of signal to each other so that we can communally respond is, just all shot because of all of this centering of a single particular caricature of what it means to be human.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like we're just yeah, our emotions are dampened from day one, it feels like. And I use this example all the time. When you hear a crying baby, the first thing you do is rock it and say shh,
Hmm, hmm.
you know? And
Yeah,
then
it just happens.
Right. And the process I have learned about, from other friends that have had babies of like when they won't sleep and you have to let them quote unquote cry it out and how hard that is for people to just listen to their child cry.
I
And
did
I get
not.
it.
I couldn't. I could not. I
I
did not.
know. I don't have kids, but even I can imagine like just listening to your child cry and not being able to do anything about it would be the most horrible, like heartbreaking thing to do. But we're also just trained how uncomfortable that is to hear somebody else cry.
And also, like when you think about even the child crying is a great example because I breastfed my babies for the first almost 2 years of their lives, and the like I quickly learned that the crying caused my body to produce milk. Like I
Really?
didn't have to do anything. I heard crying and I
Hmm.
could feel the contraction in the mammary glands. I could feel the production starting and I'd be like, give me the baby. Who has? Give me the baby. And this was even other people's children crying in the supermarket. And like
Hmm.
I
Oh
could
my
hear
gosh.
crying and my body would produce milk. So I'm saying these are physiological responses that I didn't have. I had no, this was not socialization. I didn't have
Yeah.
it, right? And I think that we are so shutting down our ability to be human
Hmm.
because we're not letting ourselves feel our feelings and then have our body's wisdom about how to respond to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course,
Yeah.
that shows up in the organization as poor decision making and lack of innovation and all this kind of stuff. Because, like, to be fully human, let's be fully human, and then we can solve the problems in the world if
Yeah.
we are our full selves.
Yes.
So,
Thank you. And you and I will solve all the world's problems.
yes, we'll be fully human.
Okay, before we start wrapping up, is there anything else that has come up to you during our conversation that you feel you really, just powerful about that you would like to share about grief or the workplace or our cultures and our humanness?
Yeah, I think there's one thing that I was thinking about since yesterday that when we face some of the injustice in society that that feel awful and we like you feel the anger and the grief come up as you acknowledge it.
Hmm.
I think that we want to, I'm inviting myself into letting myself feel that
Hmm.
as the beginning of the healing. Like grief is an opportunity to heal.
Hmm.
And like the rupture that happens when a person passes or when we're confronted with just all of what we're seeing right now,
Hmm.
there's a way that I want to hold it back because I'm just like, oh my God, this is awful.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel this thing. But like when we let ourselves feel it and express it and acknowledge it with each other,
Hmm.
then we begin to be those mirrors, those healing spaces. And then other things can happen. We can co-create whatever, we can imagine whatever. And so I guess for right now, as I looked in the news and however many journalists died in other parts of the world, I'm just like, I can just feel that
Hmm.
and express that and say, this is terrible. I am not proud of us as humans. And let that expression be in my body, something that mirrors the request and the desire for healing and change.
Yeah.
And that happens in the workplace, and it's hard. People will say, Faith, what's the point, right? It's not going to change. I'm like, our expression of our full emotions is not just about change, it's about being in the place where change is possible.
Yeah.
And, so.
I love that. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So, I have a little tradition on my podcast. At the end of every episode, I pull a random card from the death deck. Uh,
Okay.
and my cat's gonna chime in here too. He just finished lunch. So I'm gonna pull a random card and then I will let you answer it. And then fair's fair, I will answer it as well. So,
Okay, cool.
uh, so, okay. This is interesting. It's called Time Well Spent. You have just received a prognosis of 6 months to live, but you feel very healthy. How are you spending your time?
6 months to live, but I feel very healthy.
Hmm.
I don't know that I would change much except um travel.
Mhm.
That like I have traveling with my kids, with people I love on my list. Like, let's go to France. I have a friend who has a place in France, and she's been saying, "Come," and I'm like, I don't have the money. I was like, it's
Oh,
cool. I'm just gonna, put that money down and just go. And it's
yeah,
like if whatever the student loan and the, credit card bills just won't get paid, and that's fine.
yeah.
So I think that the experiences with people I love and
Mhm.
the curating of it's almost like there's an opportunity to curate a wrap-up story of experiences and
Yeah.
how would we do that, and that feels like what I would want to do.
I like that. I feel like a lot of people would say travel too, and that's kind of my answer too. Yeah, I want to go see as much of the world as I can in that 6 months, but I also would love to just have like two or three big parties. And I'm not a big loud party person, but like when I say party, I mean like I want to have everybody I've ever met in my life come over at some point so I can see them one more time and we can share our stories and we can say our goodbyes.
Mhm.
'Cause I've met a lot of amazing people in my life, and I just would love the opportunity to see everybody one more time to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Oh
Did
yeah.
you see that movie with the funeral before the death? There was a movie to some people met up on a flight, but this person was traveling back to his mother's funeral, but the
Okay.
funeral hadn't happened yet. I mean, the death hadn't happened yet. And
Yeah.
so it was just all, performers
Oh,
performing things and just this whole
yeah.
celebratory experience to let that person see
Hmm.
just ways that they had experiences that they shared together.
Yeah.
The thing that the traveling feels similar to me, although it's a smaller group of people.
Hmm.
But it's like, who are the 4 or 5 people that I'd want to see things with and process things with? And, I had a friend who passed, I have a friend who passed recently, and she had her chemo and then went to Portugal with her sister and her daughter, and she had another treatment and she went to Jamaica, and and there was just this,
Yeah.
I'm going to these places with people I love.
Oh, I love that. Yay. I've not seen that movie. I remember seeing something about it, but I love the idea of a living funeral, like the funeral before you go. Because man, how many cool things do we say about people after they're gone? Like, and then they didn't get to hear it.
And often
Even the
funerals are quite hysterical, as in there's the sober part, but some of the stories that show up, man, it's just
I,
like,
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's some embarrassing things I don't need ever spoken about again. It might come out, but whatever.
I know you get to hear those. You get to have the
Yeah,
laughs and the cringe. Like it's
absolutely. It's all part of being human. Awesome. Faith, this was so awesome. I knew it would be because you are such a cool person and I knew we'd have great conversations. So thank you so much for being on my show. I'm going to give you a moment here. I want you to tell my listeners where they can find you, how they can connect with you.
faithclarke.com, or in socials. I'm going to give you the link to my
Yeah.
Substack.
I'll put those in the description.
But like, email me or message me on any platform is the best way. I love a good conversation. Like, this is like life to me. So
Yeah.
people can get on my Calendly for no reason at all. I'd be happy to chat.
Oh, okay. Well, good to
Right.
know. I will put all those links down in the description. Faith, thank you again so much. This was wonderful. I'm so happy you came on my show to share all your knowledge.
Thanks for having me, Nikki.
All right. Another huge thank you, Faith. Thank you so much for your time. We had such a great conversation. I will have you back anytime you would like. So thank you again, Faith, for your time. You can find information on Faith down in the description below. So look for that. Again, you can find me at nikkithedeathdoula.com. Please reach out to me. And if you have an idea for the show or a guest you would like me to interview, please let me know that as well. And if you really like this show, easier, I mentioned Patreon at the top. An even easier, quicker, completely free way you can support me is rate and review this show. That's just how the algorithms work. The more ratings and reviews people get, the more often it'll pop up in somebody's feed. And who knows, somebody might be grieving a very specific loss and stumble upon the episode they need to hear the most to make them feel a little less alone and give them some comfort. So please leave a rating and write a review if you're on Apple Podcast, or share it with a friend. That's all I ever ask. I don't get paid a dime for this podcast. I don't charge. It's out there in the world for people to listen to it for free. So yeah, give some good karma. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week and always. Your grief is yours. Your feelings are valid. Grief doesn't always have to suck. Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula is produced by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC in Columbus, Ohio. Nikki the Death Doula LLC is for consulting, education, emotional support, and guidance, and is no way considered a funeral establishment or licensed mental health establishment. Scripts, editing, sound design, literally everything with this podcast is done solely by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC, with the exception of the music. The music is Cheery Monday by Kevin MacLeod. Licensing information can be found at filmmusic.io.